Good morning, everybody. My name is Steve Nguyen. I am the head of operational compliance at Novartis Institutes for Biomedical Research. We're based here in Cambridge, but we have sites all over the globe. Just a little background. I mean, there are a lot of pharmaceutical companies here. NIBR, Novartis Institutes for Biomedical Research, is the research arm for Novartis. We've got different parts of the organization. We've got our pharma, we've got Alcon. NIBR is the research arm. We're focused on discovering and developing the innovative new medicines with over 6,000 scientists, physicians, and business folks all over the world. And that comes in, to play because we have to send our chemicals and compounds all over the world. And I'll talk about how we use Compliance Checker for that. So Novartis has a controlled substance program because as a pharmaceutical company, we work with many chemicals. Obviously, you know that. Many are pharmacologically active, some of which are also controlled substances, not just in the US, but in other jurisdictions around the world. And the jurisdictions are varied from country to country. There is a little bit of overlap, but it varies. The same compound may be in one country as Schedule 1 or 2, but in another country, it's not even listed. And those regulations regulate the entire life cycle of the chemical or compounds or controlled substances, from synthesis to purchasing and acquisition, how do you store it, how do you handle it on a daily basis, how you document its use, how you transport it from site to site or to collaborators, and how you dispose or destroy that controlled substance when you're done using it. Okay? And why do we have a program? Because we want to maintain compliance and continue our ability, to do the research while we are continuing to come up with these new compounds. Okay? We have a comprehensive approach at Novartis in terms of controlled substances. It's globally aligned across all of our divisions and sites. Okay? So we have what we call our official program where we are registered with the local agencies to use controlled substances when we need to use them. Okay? So for example, here in the US, we will have a registration for Schedules 2 through 5 or even Schedule 1s at some location so we can properly use controlled substances in our research. And we also monitor all incoming materials, anything that we synthesize, anything we store, anything that leaves Novartis, so that we are not going against the local regulations when we are sending it to our collaborators or sending it to our other sites as they use the materials. So for example, in the US, we have registrations here in Massachusetts with the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, in California with the California Department of Justice, and with the United States Drug Enforcement Administration. And that's on many levels, just to use some of the building blocks, obviously, in synthesizing these compounds. Part of our registered program includes an extensive list of the materials that we would like to use. We have to submit that list to the legal agencies every year, and the amounts that we want to use. And we have to keep full documentation for multiple years of how much we use, when we use it, how we dispose of it, in what experiments. So we have policies and processes in place to make sure that we have security. We have badge access, we have cages to store the materials. We have lock boxes within the cages depending on the materials. We also have safes for Schedule 1s. Benzylpiperazine is Schedule 1, a common building block. We also have to provide training to all the chemists who are users. We also have Vivaria staff who use some of these controlled substances in their studies. We have to document everything, and we can be audited at any time by the regulatory agencies, and we also do internal audits. So as you can see, there's a huge administrative and bureaucratic burden to monitor the chemicals that we use and also the potential compounds that we synthesize. Okay? In terms of surveillance of the materials, we monitor all chemical purchases. It used to be that chemists would say, well, it's not a controlled substance. They may know that as part of a small subset of a list that they've seen, But if they intend to send that chemical or compound to another country, and because we are global, we do that quite often. We have disease areas in different parts of the world where we may send some of our compounds there. So we need to know whether it's controlled there or not. Something that's not controlled here in the US, like caffeine, is considered controlled in China. So we look at all chemical purchases. Anything that comes into Novartis, we have collaborations with universities, with other entities. Any compound that comes in, if we know the structure, great. If we don't know the structure, how do we know it's controlled or not? Okay? So we have to monitor those incoming materials. Anything that we design or synthesize in-house, we want to know if there are controlled substance components within that compound. Okay? We have a large chemical library as well as a chemical building block inventory that we want to check. Legislation changes regularly across the world. How does one person or a group manage all of that? So it's a pretty onerous task. And before we ship anything, we also want to make sure that we're not shipping it to a country where it's controlled, like I mentioned. Okay? How do we monitor all of this? We use ChemAxon's compliance checker. Okay? We work with all of our internal partners, the different disease areas, chemists, the compound library managers, various different groups. But really, at the heart of it is we use the ChemAxon tool compliance checker to monitor our lab notebooks, to monitor our libraries, to monitor our purchases and requests. Right? We also outsource to the ChemAxon compliance checker service to check blinded compounds because we have collaborators who want to share things with us, but they won't share their structures yet. Not until it's further in the collaboration. So we have an agreement where they can submit their compounds through NDA or CDA to ChemAxon. ChemAxon provides that service and does the compliance check and just lets us know that it's controlled or not controlled. We don't get any structure information. The same report goes back to the collaborator. And so then it helps us be able to get that material in and make sure that we are being compliant and not working with controlled substances at all. Right now, it's a manual process. We're using the current system that we got out there. It's semi-automatic in that we can upload some batch tools, and we've got some scripts to help along the way. But our IT department is currently evaluating the new version of Compliance Checker that's available right now that will help us be more efficient and speed up some of these compliance checks. We're looking forward to when they vet that through our environment and allow us to use that. So we're excited and looking forward to using that. Again, we go through all of these administrative processes, both with the official controlled substance program and using and monitoring, using Compliance Checker to monitor all of our inventories so that we can allow our researchers to continue doing what they do best, create new medicines to help everybody, right? So that they can continue the research, because if we're not compliant in any way, any of these regulatory agencies can shut us down, which then keeps us from working with any of these potential controlled substances, period. So Compliance Checker really is helping us to accomplish that. Any questions?
For international shipping, do you deal with harmonized tariff system codes as well?
Yes, that's another component. That's not part of our controlled substance program, but we are looking at harmonized tariff codes. We're using currently some generic ones, especially for the compounds that haven't been characterized or don't have specific ones. We have a trade manager, and we actually are looking at some options to get more defined tariff codes. But that's still definitely a gap in the organization. Unfortunately, Compliance Checker doesn't help with that. I mean, Compliance Checker does help with knowing whether it's dual use, whether there's heavy metals, or there are restrictions based on the regulations, but not with tariff classification.
You can answer with I can neither confirm nor deny, but what happens when you get a hit?
Well, because we actually are using Compliance Checker on global regulations, we get hits quite often. right? So, but it doesn't necessarily mean we have a hit locally where it is controlled. So right now, we run anywhere from dozens to hundreds, thousands of compounds and chemicals daily. We get hits many times for Singapore or France or Austria, but fortunately, we're not located there, so those don't apply to us, and we're not shipping anything there. If we were, this is one way we can avoid transporting it to that country. Now, obviously, if somebody wants to send something from the US to Singapore and it is a hit, we actually don't allow that. We stop it, and this is one of those gateways where we can check and say, hey, we can't allow you to send that to Singapore, for example, unless we have registrations for that material itself.
Short follow-up. If you got a hit like in your Ellen, would the chemist then just be told not to make it?
And we have processes. So compliance checker, doesn't control the process. It's a tool that we use to identify potential hits. So it really depends on the process that we have in place, and that means we work with our chemists to make sure that if they're designing compounds or whatnot, that they submit that so that we can do our scans of all the electronic lab notebooks before they actually synthesize something, right? Or we're checking for purchases before the purchase order actually gets made and sent out. We've actually had some hits for BZP where a scientist tried to order it. We actually said, no, you cannot order it. They tried to get around it, and unfortunately, they're not with Novartis anymore. So, it happens, and this tool helps us identify, but it's supplemented by the processes. It's reinforced by the processes that we have in place.
Yeah, so for those of us who are, I guess, less familiar with Compliance Checker, it will flag it down for you, but will it provide you with the necessary documentation you might need to fill out from an MTA perspective or anything along that line?
You mean in terms of the blinded service with partners, or just internally?
If it's something that you're going to move around, or you're going to
Sure.
take something in or send something out to a CRO?
So it doesn't itself provide an MTA, but it provides us the information, and it does link back to the legislations. It does reference the legislations so that we know what country it came from. There's a link to the legislation if it's published online, so that we can make that interpretation. The software itself doesn't make the interpretation, it provides the information. That's why our compliance group actually uses that information, determines on whether it's appropriate to ship out or to send or to share. And if we're sharing it, say, with a collaborator, where's the collaborator located? Are they in a country where it is controlled? If they're not, and it is controlled and they still want it, do they have the registrations in place to receive it, and do we have the registration in place to properly send it to that country?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve, for this very nice presentation. I think it helped to put in context the compliance word in this compliance checker. So what does it mean when we are talking about compliance? Because there are different compliance as well, but this is about specific type of rather psychoactive neurotoxics, and then furthermore, compound type. So I will talk about a system that Steve mentioned at the end that they are evaluating right now. So the current system was taken over by ChemAxon to maintain, and then that time we decided to completely redesign for different reasons. First of all, sustainability for us of the code, but in the meantime, we decided to implement completely new technologies to make it faster and better and completely web-based, the whole interface, as you will see. So I will talk about the revamped compliance checker now in 10 minutes. And what is this? This was released in spring, in April, the first version, the commercial version of it. And we have a powerful API because one of the redesign purpose was to make it easier to integrate into any system, any enterprise system. In the meantime, we gained 60 times faster speed. It's a little bit more already than that. And one of the latest developments is the auto update. So in the current system, it's not very easy. In the new system, this will be available. And of course, the redesigned user interface, this is how it is realized for the end user. So let's start with this then, immediately. So this shows you the end user interface. So after you logged in, you landed on a page where you can immediately start entering any name or ID if your naming service is integrated, whatever format that the Marvin API understands. And it immediately converts its structure. But of course, you can use Marvin.js for editing or entering a structure. And then the next thing you have to do is just click on the check if other parameters are set. But by default, everything, all regulations which are available for your installation is there. And you can click on a link. This was a question before. And you are directed to the original regulation page. You can read yourself further on that. You can also check what chemical rule matched your compound. We have superstructure search on these. So you can carefully investigate further. And also, besides setting the countries, you have output fields. You can dynamically switch on or off. Like if you want to get further details, you can switch on the what is controlled box, and you can read a specific text from the regulation that is relevant for your compound. So it's very simple, but you get all the information. If you want to create a report from a single search, you have 5 different choices, and whatever you click, it's downloaded immediately, and you can open up and use it. So this was when you checked your structure against all of the categories or registrations that are available. And now let's see an example when you select countries. We have some default countries, even like how I selected Austria, Canada, Denmark. These contains everything that the specific country signed. So not just Austria contains not just Austria, but also the EU regulations, the UN regulations, Montreal Protocol, everything that the country signed. You see I added Germany, then I immediately got a hit. So TNT is controlled in Germany, but not in the previous 3 countries, as you can see. The same is true. You can check why was it a match. And I just show here that you can have your specific levels. I will have a video how you define these specific levels. So if you want to check only against UK legislations, you create a level for UK legislations, and then your hits include only the UK legislations, no European Union, whatever else UK signed. Okay? So this was the simple single check interface. And this next video shows you the batch check. You can see on the right side that here is the history. So all the uploaded files shows the details, how much time you needed. So the same you do with selecting the countries or check levels on the left side. So, but also there are different options to choose which default format you want to generate. You can generate more report formats, and later you can generate from an existing. So I started here. Now on the second row, I show you that if you click on this history, it shows all the details, how many compounds were checked, how many was controlled, and so on. And you can see what was the setting for, but you can, this is where I show it, you can regenerate the report. So if this one had only a PDF available, then you can select to have another format. And this is generated from your previous result. So no, it doesn't run again. It shows you the same result maybe 2 months later when you decide to download this in HTML format. Okay, so also even in a PDF, the links are live. So if you click a link on a link, then it jumps you to the original regulation page. it's very important that if you got a hit, you want to know why and how it is exactly controlled. I just showed that in the meantime. This is the Pistoia controlled substance list, and this shows the results. This is now in an HTML format, and again the links are live. So basically, the batch check also a very simple, easy to use interface. And in this video, I show you how to define a new category for an administration. So this is only available for administrations. As you can see, it is for Austria. It shows that a lot of other regulations are also included in Austria. And then this is another one, but you can see there this shows European Union regulations, and this one shows the pure Austria when only the Austrian legislations are selected. So you can create your own level this way. Now this example shows how you would put together legislations already for Germany. You have different boxes that makes it easier to select from the available regulations. Then when you are filtered, then you can simply add, delete, add, remove one by one if you want. So this helps the administrator to create a new check level, and then you can use this new check level in your search. You can use the check level name or code in the API what you use for integration, for example. Also, I talked about auto update. So another option on for the administrator to do the update can either go to the server, download the database, the version of the knowledge base selected, and then update, or click this button, and this goes to the update server, checks for the latest version, and if there is a newer version, it brings down and update the knowledge base. In the meantime, when the update is running, the previous version is still serving any calls that happened before, and when the new version is ready and extracted, then from that point, any new calls will be served by the new service, and the old calls after served the knowledge base, the previous version of knowledge base is retired and goes to the history. So, and we also implemented that alerts are coming. So it really looks like now any other program that you are informed that a new version is available and you can automatically update. This process was much more difficult in the previous version. Just a snapshot for the API. We have a very easy to use simple API for integration purposes. You can check it out through examples. You click this, it's copied. You can try out, so you can see how the response is created in different formats, and it helps you to integrate it into your application. For example, into your ELN or inventory, and so on. And just a few words about the performance, because we are very proud of the performance of this new system. So we can guarantee now 100 compounds per second on a Amazon M4 X-Large server. So it's a medium type server, basically. You can scale it up even further, and the scale up is almost linear with the performance of the computation server and also the number of computation servers. So in both ways you can scale up the whole process. And last, I would like to talk a few words about the roadmap. So now in focus is the integration to ChemAxon tools, and you can already see how it is integrated into the Plexus Connect outside, and also since the pay-per-view services was in in one of our most important goals. The first realization of this is we integrated, actually the chemicalized people integrated compliance into the chemicalized. You can see a presentation from RP later, but you can also see this outside, how it is integrated. So like any other parameter, you can choose to get the compliance information on your structure, and you can start modifying to see when you will not, when it will be not controlled anymore. And also it's integrated into Marvin Live. You can see this. Ondrash can help in that. And the future, because currently the single system can be installed in an enterprise environment, and it's quite expensive in this way. So we will have some more cheaper solutions. And also, we go to these mini-hosted per user, per month license type. This is one way, and the other is the other direction, fully hosted solutions, like we already do for Novartis with the current, and as well as software as a service, which means that the user doesn't have to do anything. We decide what is the barrier. Maybe all the compounds are handled by us, or only we integrate the information into their system. But it's a service. It means that they don't have to do anything. It's not a simple hosted solution. And with this, I finished my slides, and thank you very much. This is the team. Whoever worked on this. One person is new in the team, is not there yet, Robert Wagner, but the others are.
How many updates are we doing now on regulation? How many? Is it weekly, monthly? So people have a feel for.
In average, weekly 1 or 2 updates are coming, but sometimes in a batch, several comes. So maybe one comes just this morning. So it depends on how it comes out. So the Petco is doing this, and they have many different resources they are regularly monitoring, and it's whenever something new comes, then they put it in. Either it is just a modification or an addition or a deletion of a compound, and when it's ready, they immediately submit the changes, and our partners, our clients, will receive it automatically.
Hey, Ákos, this is Lee again. So I had a quick question with regards to, I understand this is more of a compliance checker aspect, but have you thought about anything else that the tool could possibly do? I'm thinking about safety data or anything internally for the pharma industry, for us, for example, exploration of internal documents, internal safety data that we might have that we wouldn't expose outside of the company. The compliance checker is mostly checking regulations outside of the or outside of the company from other countries and that, but for internal capabilities, is that something you considered as potential?
Yeah, so if it is related to this kind of compliance, then in the current system there is a user interface how you can add your own rules. In this new system, after analyzing the requests from our users, it turned out that this is not really frequently needed. So what we offer now is that we can create these rules for your internal. When you have your own rules, then the knowledge base is automatically merges. So the knowledge base, which is automatically updated and we are maintaining, and your own knowledge base are merged together. And your searches will happen against a merged knowledge base.
Against both?
Against both. Merged, but yeah, from your aspect, it's the same.
Do you provide a kind of a service level agreement between when the new regulatory rule set is created or published and when it's available in your environment for an update to the clients?
You mean a date or how much we guarantee?
Yeah. Is there a guarantee time delay between official release and available in?
So most of these rules are actually published before release. So by the time it's in force, they are inside the knowledge base. If something is just published and immediately get in force, that's a difficult situation because it depends on how many structures are. So there is no exact date specified in this. But it's guaranteed that if it was available in time before, but by the time it gets in rule, it will be included. So, but you can imagine that if there is a completely new regulation comes and the government that published it didn't take care to publish it earlier, which is rare, then you need time to create these queries from it. And it depends on how many structures are published at the same time. So, but I think in any difficult situation, it is 1 or 2 weeks for creation. If it's a long one, then maybe 2 months, but I don't believe that any government will not publish it before it gets in.